Folk dumped trash in my yard as a mistake, but I exposed their racist plot with art. Watch the drama, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for our latest HOA battles and justice wins. I woke up that crisp Saturday morning in Greenhaven to the sound of a truck engine idling outside my house, a noise that made me, Darius Evans, pause as I sipped my coffee because I wasn't expecting any deliveries, especially not in this upscale Oregon neighborhood. So I stepped onto my front porch, my heart sinking at the sight before me, my once pristine lawn now a chaotic mess, littered with piles of trash, plastic bottles, old tires, broken furniture, all scattered across my yard like a landfill had exploded, and I felt my blood boil because I knew this wasn't an accident. Even though a note taped to my mailbox from the HOA claimed it was. The words, "Apologies for the inconvenience, a waste truck malfunctioned," printed in bold, promising a cleanup soon. But I wasn't buying it, and I didn't have to guess who was behind it, because there she was, Linda Carter, the HOA president, standing across the street in her purple blazer. Her arms crossed, a smug smile on her face as she watched me, her graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, and I marched over, my voice steady but firm. "Linda, what is this? You can't just dump trash in my yard and call it an accident. This is my property. Clean it up now." And her smile widened, her tone dripping with condescension. "Mr. Evans, I'm so sorry. It was a terrible mishap. The waste company we hired had a malfunction. We'll get it cleaned up soon. But you know, if your yard wasn't so cluttered, maybe this wouldn't have happened." And I felt my fists clench, my heart pounding, and I shot back. "Don't play games with me. Linda, my yard was spotless. I'm an environmental activist. I'd never let it look like this. You did this, and I want it gone." And her eyes narrowed, her voice turning cold. "I told you, Darius, it's being handled. But frankly, if you can't handle a little mess, maybe you don't belong in a place like Greenhaven. Some people just aren't cut out for our standards." And there it was, the racism I'd always sensed, now out in the open, her words a clear message. "You don't belong here because you're black." And I knew she'd been waiting for an excuse to push me out, because I'd lived here for 2 years. A black man in a mostly white neighborhood, always feeling the whispers, the stares, the comments like, he must be a troublemaker. Despite my work as an environmental activist, leading cleanup drives and teaching kids about sustainability, and now she'd taken it too far. So I stepped closer, my voice low. "This isn't an accident, Linda. I'll prove it, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you're really about." And her laugh was sharp, cutting. "Good luck, Darius. The HOA has the authority here, and I've got the community behind me. You're fighting a losing battle." And as she turned to walk away, I saw neighbors peeking out their windows, some with curiosity, others with smug approval. And I knew I was in for a fight, because 2 weeks passed, and the trash was still there. The HOA claiming scheduling issues with the waste company, leaving my yard an eyesore, a constant humiliation. But what Linda didn't know was that I wasn't just an activist. I was a creator, a man who turned trash into art for years, using recycled materials to make sculptures that told stories. And I wasn't going to let her destroy my home, my reputation, my life. So I grabbed my phone, my voice steady as I called my friend Lena, a fellow activist. "Lena, the HOA dumped trash in my yard, called it an accident, but they're not cleaning it up. I know it's a setup. I need your help. We're going to turn this into something they'll regret." And as I hung up, I looked at the mess, the plastic bottles, the tires, and I saw potential, because I knew I could transform this into a masterpiece, a way to expose Linda's lies and show Greenhaven what I was really about. So I got to work, pulling out my tools, my paint, my welding gear, and I started building, shaping the trash into a sculpture, a towering figure of a tree made entirely of recycled materials, its branches crafted from bottles, its trunk from tires. And by the end of the day, it stood proud in my yard, a symbol of growth and resilience. And I took photos, posting them online with the caption, HOA dumped trash in my yard as an accident. So I made art, Greenhaven. Let's talk. And I watched as the post went viral. Thousands of likes, comments flooding in. This is incredible. Who did this to you? And art from trash. You're a genius. And I knew I'd struck a nerve because by the next morning, reporters were at my door, their cameras rolling as I spoke. I'm Darius Evans, and the HOA tried to humiliate me with this trash, but I turned their lie into art. This isn't about a mistake. It's about racism. And I'm not stopping until justice is served. And I saw Linda watching from across the street, her face red with fury. But I also saw neighbors gathering, their eyes on the tree, and I knew this was just the beginning. Because I wasn't just fighting for my yard, I was fighting for justice. For every person of color in Greenhaven who'd been made to feel less than, and I was going to win, no matter what she threw at me next. The tree sculpture I'd crafted from the trash in my yard had turned Greenhaven into a focal point of attention overnight. And I, Darius Evans, could feel the shift in the air as I stood on my porch the next morning, watching neighbors gather to take photos of the artwork, their murmurs of awe mixing with the crisp Oregon breeze. But I also knew Linda Carter and the HOA weren't going to let this slide, because my viral post had called them out, and I could see her across the street. Her purple blazer as stiff as her scowl, her phone pressed to her ear as she paced, clearly plotting her next move. And I felt a mix of defiance and determination, because I wasn't just fighting for my yard anymore. I was fighting for every person of color in this neighborhood who'd been targeted. So I turned to Lena, who'd come over to help document the sculpture. My voice steady. Lena, we've got their attention. Now we need to keep the pressure on. I want to know where this trash really came from, because I don't buy their accident story. And Lena nodded, her eyes sharp. I'm on it. Darius, I've got a contact at the waste management company. I'll see if they know anything. And I'll reach out to some environmental groups. They'll want to hear about this. And I felt a surge of hope, because I knew we were building a coalition, but I also knew Linda was watching. So I stayed vigilant, my security cameras on, my senses sharp. And that afternoon, the first reporter arrived, a young woman from a local news outlet, her camera crew setting up as she interviewed me. Mr. Evans, your sculpture has gone viral. Can you tell us what happened? And I spoke clearly, my voice steady. I'm Darius Evans, an environmental activist. The HOA dumped this trash in my yard, called it an accident, but they haven't cleaned it up in weeks. I turned it into art to show Greenhaven what they're really doing. This isn't about a mistake. It's about racism. They want me gone because I'm black. And the reporter's eyes widened, her tone serious. That's a heavy accusation. Do you have any proof? And I nodded. I'm working on it, but look at the trash. It's been here for weeks. They're not cleaning it up. They're trying to humiliate me. And the story aired that evening. Greenhaven HOA accused of racism after trash incident turned into art. The segment showing my tree sculpture. The trash still scattered around it, and my words echoing. And I watched as the story exploded. Social media lighting up with hashtag trash to art and hashtag justice for Darius. Comments like, this is incredible. The HOA needs to go and support Darius. He's a hero. Pouring in, and I knew the pressure was mounting, because the next day, more reporters showed up. National outlets now, their cameras rolling as I spoke. This isn't just about me. It's about every family of color in Greenhaven who's been targeted. We deserve to live here without fear, without harassment. And I saw neighbors joining the conversation. The Garcias, a Latino family down the street who'd been fined for their kids' toys. Standing beside me, Mrs. Garcia's voice firm. They've been after us too. It's time for change. And the Wilsons, a white couple who'd lived here for years, adding, we support Darius. The HOA's gone too far. And I felt a wave of support. But I also knew Linda wasn't going to sit idly by, because that evening she released a statement through the HOA's website, claiming the trash was definitely an accident and accusing me of exploiting the situation for personal gain, and saying my sculpture was a publicity stunt that disrupts community harmony. And I felt my blood boil, because I knew she was trying to spin this, to save her image. But the public wasn't buying it. The comments online tearing her apart. "She's lying. Clean it up already. And Darius is a hero. Fire Linda." And I knew we were winning, so I kept digging, working with Lena to trace the trash. And what we found was shocking, because her contact at the waste management company confirmed no truck had malfunctioned that day. The trash had been delivered deliberately, and the invoice led to a shell company called Evergreen Waste Solutions, a name that didn't exist in any public records. And I felt my heart race because I knew this was a setup, but I needed more, so I called Jamal. A tech-savvy activist friend, my voice urgent. "Jamal, I say, I need you to dig into Evergreen Waste Solutions. It's a shell company. I think the HOA is hiding something bigger." And Jamal's tone was serious. "I'm on it, Darius. I've got a friend who can trace financial records. If they're hiding something, we'll find it." And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because I knew we were close, but I also knew Linda was desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. So I stayed vigilant. My camera's on, my senses sharp, and I organized a community meeting at the park that night, my voice carrying over the crowd of over 40 residents. The HOA dumped this trash to humiliate me, but I turned it into art, because I'm not going anywhere. They've been targeting families of color for years, and we need to stand together to stop them. Who's with me? And I saw heads nod, the Garcias and Wilsons raising their hands, even Mrs. Carter, who'd once backed Linda, standing up, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, Darius. I see it now. I'm with you." And I felt a wave of hope, because this was the unity I'd been fighting for. But I also knew the real battle was coming, because Linda wasn't going to stop. Not until she was forced to. And I was ready to force her. Because this wasn't just about my yard anymore. It was about justice. For me, for the Garcias, for every family in Greenhaven who'd been made to feel less than. And I was going to make sure we won, no matter what she threw at me next. The viral attention on my trash-turned-art sculpture had shaken Greenhaven to its core, and I, Darius Evans, could feel the pressure mounting on Linda Carter and the HOA. But I also knew she wasn't the type to back down. And I was right, because a week after the news broke, I received a summons to court, a lawsuit from Linda and the HOA accusing me of public nuisance and defamation for my inflammatory social media post in the sculpture, claiming it had disrupted community harmony and caused emotional distress to residents, demanding $30,000 in damages and an injunction to remove the artwork from my yard. And I felt my blood boil as I read the filing, because this was absurd. They dumped the trash in my yard, left it there for weeks, and now they were playing the victim. But I also knew I had to fight smart, so I called Jamal, my voice steady. "Jamal, Linda's suing me for the sculpture. She's trying to get it removed and hit me with damages. But we've got proof this was no accident. We need to counter this, and I want to dig deeper into Evergreen Waste Solutions." And Jamal's tone was fierce. "I'm on it. Darius, I'll file a countersuit for harassment, racial discrimination, and property damage. And I've been digging into Evergreen Waste Solutions. It's a shell company, but I found a paper trail, payments from the HOA to an account linked to a known extremist group, the Pure Neighborhood Alliance. They're anti-minority. This is big." And I felt my heart race, because this wasn't just a setup. This was a conspiracy. The HOA had taken money from a hate group to target me. So I told Jamal, "Get everything ready for court, and let's get this to the press. The public needs to know what they're really doing." And he nodded. "I've already got a contact at a major outlet. They'll run this story before the hearing. Linda's going to wish she never crossed you." And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because I knew we were closing in. So the next day, I sent the evidence to the news outlet, a detailed report with the financial records, the payments to the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, the photos of the trash still in my yard, and by that afternoon, the story broke. Greenhaven HOA linked to extremist group in racist plot against black resident. The article quoting me directly. I'm Darius Evans, and the HOA didn't just dump trash in my yard. They took money from a hate group to target me, to push me out because I'm black. This isn't just about trash. It's about justice for all of us. And I watched as the story exploded. Social media lighting up with #trash to art and #justice for Darius. Comments like, this is disgusting, shut down the HOA, and support Darius, he's exposing hate. And pouring in, and I knew the pressure was mounting because the next day I saw neighbors gathering in the park, the Garcias and Wilsons leading a protest, their signs reading Resign, Linda, and Greenhaven for all. And I joined them, my voice carrying over the crowd. The HOA took money from a hate group to target me, to target us, because of our race. But we're not going anywhere. We're fighting back. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered, their voices a chorus of defiance. But Linda wasn't done, because that evening, she held a press conference, her purple blazer as loud as ever, her voice dripping with fake tears. I've been unfairly targeted by Mr. Evans. He's using race to divide our community. The trash was an accident, and these accusations about extremist groups are lies. I've only ever wanted what's best for Greenhaven. And I felt my jaw tighten, because I knew she was playing the victim, trying to salvage her image. But her words rang hollow, because the evidence was undeniable, and the public wasn't buying it. The comments online tearing her apart. She's a liar. The receipts don't lie. And Resign, Linda. You're done. And I knew we were winning, so I kept digging, working with Lena to trace the trash further. And what we found was shocking, because her contact at the waste management company confirmed the trash had been sourced from an illegal dump site, violating environmental laws. And the HOA had paid $5,000 to Evergreen Waste Solutions to stage the accident. And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because this wasn't just racism, this was a crime. So I sent the evidence to Jamal, my voice steady. We've got her. The trash came from an illegal dump. They broke environmental laws to set me up. This is going to bury her in court. And Jamal's tone was triumphant. I'm adding environmental violations to the countersuit. And I've got a contact at the EP. They're launching an investigation. Linda's going down. And I felt a wave of hope, because I knew we were close. But I also knew the court hearing was the real test. So I spent the next day preparing with Jamal, going over every piece of evidence, the financial records, the security footage from the day this trash was dumped, the statements from the Garcias and Wilsons. And I reached out to more families, building a coalition, the Browns sharing their story of being fined for a lawn violation that Linda had never enforced on white neighbors. And I knew this was a pattern, a systemic campaign to push us out. So I called another community meeting at the park, my voice carrying over the crowd. Linda and the HOA took money from a hate group to target me, to target us. But we're not going anywhere. We're fighting for justice, for a Greenhaven where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered, their signs raised high. And I knew we were ready, because this wasn't just about my yard anymore. It was about justice, for me, for the Garcias, for every family in Greenhaven who'd been made to feel less than. And I was going to make sure we won, no matter what Linda threw at me next. Well, the revelation of the HOA's ties to the Pure Neighborhood Alliance had sent shockwaves through Greenhaven, and I, Darius Evans, could feel the ground shifting beneath Linda Carter's feet as the court hearing loomed closer. But I also knew she wasn't going to go down without a fight. So I stayed on high alert, working late into the night with Jamal, my living room, a war room of laptops and legal documents as we prepared our case. And what we uncovered next was even more damning, because Jamal's contact had traced the financial records further, finding a series of encrypted emails between Linda and a known member of the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, a man named Roger Klein, a leader of the extremist group with a history of anti-minority campaigns. And the emails laid out a clear plan. Linda had accepted $15,000 from the group to remove undesirable elements from Greenhaven, specifically targeting me and other families of color, with the trash dump being the first step in a broader campaign to cleanse the neighborhood. And I felt my blood boil as I read the messages. One from Linda stating, "Evans is the loudest. Start with him. Make it look like an accident. We'll drive him out first." And I knew this wasn't just racism. This was a conspiracy. So I turned to Jamal, my voice steady. "This is it. Jamal, this is the proof we need. She's not just discriminating. She's colluding with a hate group. We need to get this to the court, to the press, to everyone." And Jamal nodded, his eyes sharp. "I'm already drafting a motion to amend our countersuit. We'll add conspiracy and hate crime charges, and I've got a contact at a national outlet. They'll run this story tonight. Linda's going to wish she never crossed you." And I felt a surge of adrenaline because I knew we were closing in. So that evening, I sent the evidence to the news outlet, a detailed report with the emails, the financial records, the photos of the trash still in my yard, and by nightfall, the story broke. Greenhaven HOA president colluded with extremist group in racist plot against black resident, the article quoting me directly. "I'm Darius Evans, and the HOA didn't just dump trash in my yard. They took money from the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, a hate group, to target me and other families of color. This isn't just about a mess. It's about justice." And I watched as the story exploded. Social media lighting up with #TrashToArt and #JusticeForDarius. Comments like, "This is horrific. Shut down the HOA and support Darius. Expose the hate." Pouring in, ma'am. And I knew the pressure was mounting because the next day I saw neighbors gathering in the streets. The Garcias and Wilsons leading a march to the HOA office. Their signs reading, "Resign, Linda," and "No hate in Greenhaven." And I joined them, my voice carrying over the crowd. The HOA took money from a hate group to target us, to push us out. But we're not going anywhere. We're fighting for a Greenhaven where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered. Their voice is a chorus of defiance. But Linda wasn't done because that afternoon she held a press conference, her purple blazer as loud as ever, her voice dripping with fake tears. "I've been unfairly targeted by Mr. Evans. He's using race to divide our community. These accusations about extremist groups are lies. I've only ever wanted what's best for Greenhaven." And I felt my jaw tighten because I knew she was playing the victim, trying to salvage her image. But her words rang hollow because the evidence was undeniable and the public wasn't buying it. The comments online tearing her apart. "She's a liar. The emails don't lie." And "Resign, Linda. You're done." And I knew we were winning. So I kept digging, working with Lena to trace the Pure Neighborhood Alliance further. And what we found was shocking because Roger Klein had a history of funding similar campaigns in other neighborhoods, paying HOAs to target minority families with harassment, vandalism, even evictions. And I felt a chill run down my spine because this was bigger than Greenhaven. This was a network. So I sent the evidence to Jamal, my voice steady. "We've got a pattern. Roger Klein's been doing this across the state. Linda's just one piece of it. We need to get this to the FBI. This isn't just about us anymore." And Jamal's tone was serious. "I'm already on it. I've got a contact at the FBI. They're launching a broader investigation into the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, and they're looking at Linda for a conspiracy to commit a hate crime. We're close." And I felt a wave of hope because I knew we were close. But I also knew the court hearing was the real test. So I spent the next day preparing with Jamal, going over every piece of evidence, the emails, the financial records, the security footage from the day the trash was dumped, the statements from the Garcias and Wilsons, and I reached out to more families, building a coalition, the Browns sharing their story of being targeted with fines, the Nguyens telling me about a noise complaint that was never enforced on white neighbors. And I knew this was a systemic campaign to push us out. So I called another community meeting at the park, my voice carrying over the crowd. Linda and the HOA took money from a hate group to target us. But we're not going anywhere. We're fighting for justice, for a green haven where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered, their signs raised high. And I knew we were ready, because this wasn't just about my yard anymore. It was about justice. For me, for the Garcias, for every family in Greenhaven who'd been made to feel less than. And I was going to make sure we won, no matter what Linda threw at me next. The revelation of the HOA's ties to the Pure Neighborhood Alliance had ignited a firestorm in Greenhaven, and I, Darius Evans, could feel the ground trembling beneath Linda Carter as the court hearing loomed just days away. But I knew she was cornered, and a cornered enemy is the most dangerous kind. So I stayed on edge, my security cameras rolling, my senses razor sharp as I prepared for the legal showdown. And the pressure on Linda was escalating faster than I'd expected. Because that morning, Jamal burst into my house, his laptop under his arm, his voice a mix of urgency and triumph. "Darius, you won't believe this. The FBI just raided Roger Klein's office. They found a hidden ledger. It's got detailed payments to Linda, $25,000 total. And there's more. They've got wiretaps of her planning to escalate. She told Klein, if Evans doesn't leave after the trash, we'll make it worse. Burn his house if you have to. This is a hate crime. She's done." Oh, and I felt my heart stop. Because this wasn't just a setup. This is who I am. This was a full-on conspiracy to destroy me. And I could hear the venom in her recorded voice. The chilling intent to burn his house. And I knew we had her. But I also knew the stakes had just skyrocketed. So I told Jamal, get this to the court, now, and the press. We need the world to hear this before she can strike again. And Jamal nodded, his eyes blazing. I'm on it. I've got a contact at a national outlet. They're breaking this in an hour, and the EPA's report just dropped. The trash in your yard came from a toxic dump site. It's hazardous. Linda's in violation of federal environmental laws. She's going down hard. And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because this was the moment we'd been waiting for. So that afternoon, the story exploded across every major outlet. Greenhaven HOA president caught on tape planning arson and racist conspiracy. The wiretaps playing on repeat. Linda's voice chilling as she said, "Burn his house if you have to. He doesn't belong here." And I watched as the public erupted. Social media ablaze with #TrashToArt and #JusticeForDarius. Comments like, "She's a monster. Arrest her now," and "Protect Darius. End this hate," flooding in. And I knew the pressure was unbearable for Linda, because within hours, I saw neighbors storming the HOA office. The Garcias, Wilsons, and even Mrs. Carter leading a furious protest, their signs reading, "Arrest Linda now and no hate in Greenhaven." And I joined them, my voice booming over the crowd. Linda Carter took money from a hate group to target us. She planned to burn my house, to drive me out because I'm black. But we're not going anywhere, we're fighting. We're fighting for a Greenhaven where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd roared, their voices a thunderous wave of defiance. But Linda wasn't done, because that evening, she made a desperate move. Showing up at my house with a local news crew she'd somehow convinced to hear her side. Her purple blazer, pristine, her voice trembling with fake tears as she spoke to the camera. "I'm being framed by Mr. Evans. He's a dangerous agitator. I never meant it any harm. I just wanted to keep Greenhaven safe. These accusations are lies." And I felt my blood boil, because I knew she was trying to salvage her image. But the reporter wasn't buying it, her tone sharp. "Ms. Carter, what about the wiretaps, the payments from the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, the toxic waste in Mr. Evans' yard?" And Linda's face froze. Her stammering response cut off as the reporter turned to me. "Mr. Evans, your response," and I spoke clearly, my voice steady. "The evidence speaks for itself. Linda took money from a hate group to target me. She planned to burn my house. She broke environmental laws. This isn't about safety, it's about racism. And we're not stopping until justice is served. And the crowd cheered, the camera capturing every moment. And I knew we'd just dealt a fatal blow to her defense, because the next morning, the FBI moved in, raiding Linda's home in a pre-dawn operation. Their sirens waking the neighborhood as they hauled out boxes of evidence. And I watched from my porch, the tree sculpture still standing proud in my yard, as Linda was led out in handcuffs, her face a mask of fury and defeat. The news breaking minutes later. Greenhaven HOA president arrested for conspiracy and environmental violations. And I felt a wave of relief. But I also knew the real work was just beginning. So I called a community meeting at the park that night, my voice carrying over the crowd. Linda's been arrested, but this isn't over. We need to rebuild. We need a Greenhaven where everyone belongs. Who's with me? And the crowd cheered, their signs raised high. And I knew we were ready, because this wasn't just about my yard anymore. It was about justice. For me, for the Garcias, for every family in Greenhaven who'd been made to feel less than. And I was going to make sure we won, no matter what came next. With Linda Carter's arrest in the pre-dawn raid, Greenhaven felt like a neighborhood that had finally exhaled after holding its breath for far too long. And I, Darius Evans, stood on my porch as the sun rose, watching the last of the FBI vans drive away, the tree sculpture in my yard catching the morning light, a symbol of resilience amidst the chaos. But I knew this wasn't the end, because while Linda was in custody, the systemic issues that had allowed her to thrive still lingered. So I turned to Jamal, who'd arrived shortly after the raid, his voice steady. Darius, this is a huge win, but we need to keep pushing. The court hearing's tomorrow, and the FBI's uncovered even more. They've got evidence linking Linda to a broader network of HOAs working with the Pure Neighborhood Alliance. This is a hate crime ring. She's facing federal charges now. And I felt a surge of adrenaline, because this was bigger than Greenhaven. This was a chance to dismantle a network of hate. So I told Jamal, let's use this in court, show the judge the full scope, and make sure the community knows we need to rebuild Greenhaven from the ground up. And he nodded. I'm already on it. I've sent the new evidence to the judge, and the press is eating this up. Linda's done, yeah. And I knew he was right, because that afternoon, the news broke. Greenhaven HOA president faces federal hate crime charges in conspiracy with extremist group. The story detailing the FBI's findings, the $25,000 in payments, the wiretaps, and the broader network of HOAs targeting minority families across Oregon. And I watched as the public outrage grew, social media exploding with hashtag trash to art and hashtag justice for Darius. Comments like, this is a hate crime, lock her up, and Darius is a hero, end this now, pouring it. And I knew the pressure had reached a boiling point, because the next day, the court hearing arrived, the courthouse packed with reporters, residents, and civil rights advocates. The air electric with anticipation as the judge called the case. Evans v. Greenhaven HOA, and Linda's lawyer went first, his voice shaky. Your Honor, my client has been unfairly targeted. These accusations are baseless. Mr. Evans has caused unrest with his so-called art. But Jamal was ready, his voice calm but commanding. Your Honor, we have undeniable evidence of a hate crime. Linda Carter accepted $25,000 from the Pure Neighborhood Alliance, a known extremist group, to target Mr. Evans and other families of color. We have wiretaps of her planning to burn his house, financial records of her laundering money through a shell company, and EPA reports confirming the trash in his yard was toxic waste from an illegal dump site. This is not just harassment. This is a federal crime. And he played the wiretaps, Linda's voice chilling as she said, burn his house if you have to. He doesn't belong here. And I saw the courtroom gasp, the judge's eyes narrowing as he turned to Linda. Ms. Carter, these are grave accusations. What do you have to say? And Linda stammered, her face pale. I, I didn't, this is a setup. I never meant, but the judge cut her off, his voice sharp. I've heard enough. The evidence is overwhelming. This court finds in favor of Mr. Evans. The HOA will pay $75,000 in damages to Mr. Evans and the affected families. The board is dissolved effective immediately. And Ms. Carter, you will be held in custody pending your federal trial. And I felt a wave of relief, the courtroom erupting in cheers, the Garcias and Wilsons hugging me as tears streamed down their faces. And I saw Linda being led away in handcuffs, her head bowed, her reign of terror finally over. But I knew the work wasn't done, so I called a community meeting at the park that evening, the tree sculpture now a beacon in the center of our gathering. My voice carrying over the crowd of over 100 residents. Linda's been arrested, the HOA's been dissolved, but this isn't the end. We need to rebuild. We need a green haven where everyone belongs, where no one lives in fear. I'm calling for a new election, a new board. Who's with me? And the crowd roared, their signs raised high, the Garcias and Wilsons stepping forward to volunteer. Even Mrs. Carter, who'd once sided with Linda, raising her hand, her voice soft. I was wrong, Darius. I'm with you. Let's make this right. And I felt a surge of hope because this was the unity I'd been fighting for. So we held the election that week, a diverse board now including me, Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Wilson, and a few others, and we got to work, rewriting the rules to ban discrimination, ensuring transparency, and using the damages to fund community projects, fixing the sidewalks, starting a recycling program, and turning the park into a green space for all families. And I watched as Greenhaven came together. The once divided streets now filled with laughter, Black kids, Latino kids, white kids playing together, their parents sharing stories at the potlucks we held every month. And I saw Mrs. Carter there helping set up chairs, her voice soft. Darius, you changed everything. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. And I smiled, because those moments were the real victory, not just the lawsuit or Linda's arrest, but the way Greenhaven had become a place where everyone belonged. And I knew the fight wasn't over, because racism doesn't die with one court case. But I also knew we'd laid a foundation, one that could withstand whatever came next. With Linda Carter in custody and the old HOA dissolved, Greenhaven felt like a neighborhood stepping into the light after a long, dark storm. And I, Darius Evans, stood at the forefront of that transformation, not as a victor seeking praise, but as a neighbor determined to build a community where everyone could thrive. So I threw myself into the work, starting with the new HOA board, a diverse group that now included me, Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Wilson, and a few other residents who'd rallied behind our cause. And we met every week at the community center. Our voices united as we drafted new bylaws, rules that banned discrimination, ensured transparency in every decision, and prioritized projects that brought us together, like turning the park into a true green space with a community garden, a playground, and a recycling station. And we used the $75,000 in damages to fund initiatives that had been neglected for years. Repairing the sidewalks on our street, installing solar-powered streetlights, and starting a youth environmental program, teaching kids of all races how to care for the planet. And I watched as Greenhaven transformed. The once divided streets now filled with laughter, Black kids, Latino kids, white kids planting seedlings together, their parents sharing stories at the garden work days we held every weekend. And I felt a swell of pride, because this was what I'd fought for. A place where my activism could take root, where no one had to live under the threat of a fine or a hate-fueled accident. But I also knew change wasn't easy, because some residents, like Mr. Thompson, a longtime ally of Linda's, still clung to their prejudices. His voice sharp at one of our meetings. I don't see why we need all these changes. Things were fine before. Now it's all so messy. And I knew what he meant by messy. He meant the diversity, the inclusivity, the fact that Greenhaven wasn't his exclusive little enclave anymore. But I didn't let his words stop me. Instead, I invited him to the garden's opening ceremony, hoping to show him what we'd built. And to my surprise, he showed up, his face tight with discomfort at first, but when a group of kids, including the Garcias' son Miguel, asked him to help plant a tree, his expression softened, and he muttered, "Maybe this isn't so bad." And I knew change was slow, but it was happening. And I kept pushing, organizing events to bring the neighborhood together, like a monthly green day where families worked on sustainability projects, the Garcias teaching composting, the Wilsons leading a recycling drive, and we shared meals afterward. Mrs. Carter bringing her famous peach cobbler, her voice soft as she said, "Darius, I never thought I'd see this. I was so wrong about you, about all of us." And I smiled, because those moments were the real victory. Not just the garden or the new rules, but the breaking down of walls in people's hearts. And we didn't stop there. I proposed using the leftover damages to start a scholarship fund for the kids in our youth program, giving them a chance to attend environmental camps, to learn about careers in sustainability, and the board approved it unanimously, naming it the Greenhaven Future Fund, and I watched as those kids thrived. Miguel Garcia telling me he wanted to be an environmental scientist, his eyes bright with determination. And I knew we were building more than a garden. We were building a future. But I also knew the past wasn't entirely gone, because I heard whispers that some of Linda's old allies were trying to regroup, meeting in secret to take back the HOA. And I saw a few anonymous flyers pop up around the neighborhood, claiming the new board was too radical in destroying tradition. And I felt a pang of anger, because even after everything, they were still trying to tear us apart. So I called a board meeting, my voice firm. We can't let them sabotage what we've built. We need to show the neighborhood we're stronger than their lies. Let's organize a sustainability festival. Celebrate everything that makes Greenhaven special, and invite everyone. And the board agreed, setting the date for the following weekend. And the festival was a success. The park packed with families, music filling the air, kids building birdhouses from recycled materials, their laughter echoing as parents swapped stories over lemonade. And I saw Mr. Thompson there, helping set up a compost bin, his smile genuine as he chatted with Mrs. Garcia about her tomato plants. And I knew we were winning, but I also knew the fight wasn't over, because as the festival wound down, I got a call from Jamal, his voice tense. "Darius, some of Linda's old cronies are trying to file a lawsuit to overturn the HOA election. They're claiming it was rigged, and they're working with what's left of the Pure Neighborhood Alliance. We need to be ready." And I felt my stomach drop, because I knew what that meant. They were still trying to push us out. But I also knew that I had the community behind me now. And as I looked out at the festival, at the faces of the neighbors who'd become my family, I said, "We'll fight them, Jamal. We've come too far to lose this now." And I knew we'd win, because Greenhaven wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was a movement, and I'd never stop fighting for it, no matter what came next. A year had passed since the trash first appeared in my yard, sparking a battle that would redefine Greenhaven. And as I, Darius Evans, stood in the community garden we'd built, watching the sun set over rows of blooming vegetables and flowers, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment, because the neighborhood I'd fought for had become a beacon of unity and sustainability, where kids of every race played together in the park, their laughter echoing through the air. And I could see the changes we'd made. The garden now a vibrant hub with picnic tables and a mural painted by the children, its bright colors spelling out Greenhaven, Roots of Unity, a far cry from the days of Linda Carter's reign, when she dumped trash in my yard and called it an accident to drive me out. And I knew this was the legacy we'd built, not just for ourselves, but for every family who'd ever felt out of place here. So I poured my energy into making sure that legacy lasted, working with the new HOA board to secure grants for more sustainability projects, building a solar-powered community center next to the garden, a place where kids could learn about renewable energy, and we expanded the Green Haven Future Fund, helping more kids attend environmental camps. Kids like Miguel Garcia, who just won a national science fair with his project on composting, his mom hugging me with tears in her eyes. Darius, you gave him a dream. I'll never forget that. And I smiled, because that was why I'd fought for the future, not just for my community, but for every child who deserved a chance. And we didn't stop there. We turned the garden into a learning space, hosting workshops on everything from gardening to climate justice, inviting speakers to talk about the history of environmental racism, and I watched as minds opened. Even Mr. Thompson, who'd once grumbled about the changes, now leading a weekly composting class, his voice soft as he told me, "I was wrong, Darius. You showed me what community really means." And I felt a lump in my throat, because those moments were the real victory. Not just the garden or the new rules, but the way Greenhaven had become a place where people saw each other, truly saw each other, and we held an annual Greenhaven Greenfest to celebrate. The whole neighborhood coming together with music, food, and workshops. The Garcia's salsa next to the Wilson's barbecue. Mrs. Carter's peach cobbler next to my wife's lemonade. And I watched as families who'd once lived in fear of fines now danced together under the stars. Miguel Garcia and the Wilson kids racing through the crowd, their laughter a reminder of what we'd achieved. But I also knew the fight wasn't over, because racism doesn't disappear overnight. And I heard whispers of new residents moving in, some bringing old prejudices with them. But I also saw hope in the way the kids planted seeds without fear. In the way Mrs. Carter now mentored at the community center, helping with sustainability projects. Her smile genuine as she said, "I want to give back. Darius, you taught me how." And I knew those small acts of change were the foundation of something bigger. So I kept pushing, using my platform to advocate for environmental justice across Oregon, speaking at city council meetings, my voice steady as I told our story. Greenhaven is proof that we can fight back, that we can build communities where everyone belongs, where sustainability isn't just a buzzword, but a way of life. And we need to keep fighting for that, everywhere. And our story spread, inspiring other neighborhoods to stand up, to demand change. And I got letters from people I'd never met, Black families, Latino families, all saying, "You gave us hope." And I kept everyone, a reminder of why I'd started this fight. And as for Linda and her allies, their lawsuit to overturn the HOA election failed, the court dismissing their claims as baseless, and Linda's federal trial ended with a conviction for conspiracy to commit a hate crime and environmental violations. Her sentence set at 12 years, while Roger Klein and the Pure Neighborhood Alliance faced their own charges, dismantling a network of hate that had plagued communities for years. And Linda's house was sold to a young Black family with 2 kids, and I saw neighbors help them unpack. A sight that made my heart swell, because this was the Greenhaven I'd always wanted, a place where no one was pushed out, where diversity wasn't feared but celebrated. And on the anniversary of the day the trash was dumped, we held a ceremony in the garden, unveiling a plaque that read, "In honor of Darius Evans, who turned trash into triumph." And I stood at the podium, my voice steady. A year ago, trash was dumped in my yard to drive me out. But today, we stand here united. A symbol of what's possible when we fight for justice. Greenhaven isn't perfect, but it's ours. And we'll keep making it better, together. And the crowd cheered. Miguel Garcia running up to hug me, his smile brighter than the sun. And as I looked out at the faces, Black, Latino, white, all part of this new Greenhaven, I thought about Linda, now a footnote in our history, her dreams of division shattered, and I didn't feel vindictive. I felt at peace, because the real victory wasn't in her downfall, it was in the thriving community she tried to destroy. And as the festival wound down, I sat with Mrs. Garcia, her voice soft. "Darius, you changed everything. You showed us what we could be." And I smiled, because I knew she was right. But I also knew it wasn't just me, it was all of us, fighting together. And as I watched the last of the sunset fade, I knew Greenhaven would never be the same, and neither would I. Because this fight had taught me that true change starts with standing up, with refusing to be silenced. And I'd never stop standing up for my community, for a world where everyone belongs. Darius exposed the HOA's racist plot, turned trash into art, and united Greenhaven for sustainability. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you love this story. Hit the bell for our latest videos on HOA dramas and community triumphs. You won't want to miss what's next.